All right, let's get started here. Looks like it's just a little past time that we are meeting. 9:30 Mountain Time, 11:30 Eastern Time. Welcome to Week 2 Live Lecture 2. There's somebody coming in here right now. Welcome, Lisa. I am just starting the lecture. Welcome, welcome. I'm a little under the weather. I caught a head cold yesterday. It started up, so hello, welcome. So I'm going to try and get through this without sneezing and blowing my nose too much. I might have to kind of pause every now and then. Yeah, it finally caught up to me, I guess. I don't know about you, but it's about -1 degree here in Pittsburgh, PA. Wonderful frozen tundra. It's going to be 60s on Monday, so there you go. If you don't like the weather, just wait a few days. It's kind of like a crazy roller coaster ride. No wonder everybody's sick, right? 54 there, must be nice. That's like tropical. Yeah, they were closing all kinds of stuff down the last 2 days here. Just no school, some businesses closing down. So it's kind of crazy, but getting through it. But yeah, so I'm sick. I apologize if I sound really nasally and have to clear my throat and sneeze and all that good stuff. But going forward here, we'll see if we can cover everything that we need to cover. We went a little bit over the last time we met on Tuesday. I kind of got into it. Sometimes you just keep going. So I don't know, maybe we'll shorten it up today. We'll see kind of how far we get. No thanks for me. How are things going? Any questions, issues before I get started here? Excuse me. First part, okay. Yeah, a lot of you might be still working on the first part, and that's fine. Just a little review here. We took a look on Tuesday. We talked about looks are everything in regards to package design. We talked about the first steps in sketching, the anatomy of the die line, and then package design challenges. We're basically going to be looking at some basic shape tools this time around, part 1, creating the die line. We kind of went through that on Tuesday, so I'll be showing you a few things before we get to part 2, but mainly it is going to be part 2 of this assignment today as far as the demo goes. The shape builder tool we took a look at as well. There is a really good video in your readings and videos for that as well, so I'll show you kind of where to find that. Rules of composition, rules for package design, and then, yeah, again, we will be going into part 2, which is your design rough. Welcome, Angelica. We just got started here. So just to show you real quick. Hello, hello. Like I was telling Lisa, I'm a little under the weather today, so I apologize if you hear me sniffling and doing all that fun stuff. Anyway, I wanted to show you in readings and videos real quick here. Don't forget, this is your assessment too will be based on readings and videos in here on week 2. So make sure you're kind of taking a good look at some of these articles and videos here, if not all of them. They go into a little bit more detail. Creating shapes using the builder tool. This is a really good video, or actually this is I think it's part video and article here. Yeah, it's an article. So kind of step by step gives you kind of how to combine shapes using the shape builder tool. I kind of showed you a little bit on Tuesday with 2 shapes as well. It's kind of a fun tool to play around with. There are videos too. I think in lynda.com there are some. I just looked at a video here in your readings and videos. Go down here. Right here. How to use shape builder easy. So this is a good video. I think it's a video. Did I just click on that? No, that was the one I clicked up here. So this is the video. And then just some really good die line roadmap lynda.com videos that you can take a look at as well. You're still working on the first part. Okay. So, okay, yeah. I did want to cover something too. So I just wanted to show you where to find some extra resources there. I also posted an announcement, I believe yesterday this was. Go to announcements here. This video I actually got from your readings and videos. And I just posted it so you guys can make sure you how to create a bleed to your die line. I showed you kind of how to create a bleed all around your entire circumference of your package, but not necessarily like each individual panel flap. So we'll take a look at that, and there's a video in there you can definitely check out, and this is kind of what I'm going to go over very quickly before we get into part 2 as well. All right, so some exciting things to take a look at here. So basic shape tools, I'm just going to open up where I left off the last time that we were here on Tuesday. I kind of showed you the basic shape tools in here, and they're in Illustrator. You might have your default shaping a square rectangle tool. If you click and hold that down, you'll see all different kinds of shape tools in here. And you can also use your pen tool as well to create these shapes if you're really familiar with that. So, don't forget about these tools when you are kind of replicating and tracing over or creating your flaps here. Get rid of this. Okay, so here's my layers. And don't forget to create an artwork layer. And that's just going to be showing the template. We kind of had to veer off of that a little bit. And when I say veer off, it's just because based on the total numbers here, the ratio was a little off on the actual sketch that they gave you. So I kind of had to go off of go off of the measurements that they give you. Don't just kind of trace the template. Okay. So for instance, this bottom part here, this isn't 4x4, this F flap. 4 inches by 4 inches is really kind of, it should be symmetrical. So it's kind of a little bit distorted, the actual sketch. Okay. So if you go through each of the flaps, you can combine your, big shapes together. And then I had an issue when we were last meeting up as far as making the fold lines not have that solid line going over. So I kind of went in here and fixed it, and all I did was just kind of cut those lines, and I'll show you kind of how I did that. So you can see how I don't have a solid line anymore here. That's because I cut into this line. So I'll show you down here how I did that real quick again. See how there's like a solid line going over my fold? I don't want that to be a solid line because this is where the fold is. So I'm going to select this shape, and then I'm just going to go choose my scissors, and I'm going to click one time on the anchor point that I want to cut. Click just one time. Go over to the other one that I want to cut. So you're just basically saying, okay, Illustrator, let's cut this line. So I'm selecting these 2 anchor points. Then take your direct selection tool, just kind of click right on it and hit delete on your keyboard. Hit delete one more time to get that last vector out, and you can see your line appearing finally, that fold line, okay? That's the best kind of option, unless there was another way you could do it where you could actually create just this one big shape. The only thing is you'll have to kind of make sure your measurements are right first, and then you can do a shape builder fusion. So you unite all these shapes and then just draw these as single lines going all the way across. Oops, sorry. I meant to go check the chat. Somebody you've typed in there and I hit the share button by accident. Hold on. I'm a little foggy headed. There you go. From my NyQuil I took last night. So I might be kind of doing some crazy things today at NyQuil, I tell you what. Yeah, so just select your object, take the scissors tool, and just select the ones that you want to cut. So I'm just cutting this horizontal line, then just deselect and hit delete on your keyboard. The only thing about that is this shape becomes not a closed shape anymore. It becomes an open shape. So if you're going to do certain things to it, maybe a gradient, it might not apply it the way that you want it to, but you can apply a fill. It's just not going, it's going to be a little trickier to do certain effects too, possibly. But the thing is these are flaps anyway, so you might just be keeping them as basic colors. You know, some of these flaps you're not going to see anyway, but at least you can see those fold lines in there. So just make sure you're getting all those fold lines in. Everything looks pretty good. I had to remeasure some of this stuff in here from the last time that we met because it wasn't quite looking right where it was folding here, so I had to kind of redo that based on the specs that were given here. So just kind of make sure you're double checking everything looks good. And this is the line box, by the way, so yours might be a little different if you're doing the other two boxes. All right, so the bleed is what I set up, all four corners, just kind of a general bleed here. But in the actual video that I posted to announcements, she's showing you how to set up a bleed inside for all of your flaps. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to do that, okay? Do you have any questions so far about anything that I have discussed before I go on? All right. So what you're gonna do? Here we go. This is what you're gonna want to do. To slow my roll there, right? Go up to View in Illustrator, and you're gonna show guides. And you can clear them if you have any guides in there you don't want anymore. And the guides are, you pull them from your rulers right here. So if you don't have your rulers showing, go up to View, go to Rulers, Show Rulers. You'll have a horizontal ruler and a vertical ruler. And this is where you can click inside the ruler, click and drag down these guides. Now these won't print. These are only for you or the printer to see, to align certain things. So when you let go, say right here where that fold is, it's gonna set this guide. Now you can delete these guides. If you go up to View again and go to Guides, you can lock them so that you can't move them. You can hide them if you don't want to see them, or just, you know, release or clear them altogether. We just want to make sure they're not locked because we want to edit this. So you can tell when you select it, it turns blue, and that means it's selected. So you can delete it if you want to delete it, hit the delete button or move it. So just make sure it's not locked. You're going to pull your first line down to where a bleed would be. So I already have this bleed set up here, so that looks good. The only other bleed I would say is maybe right here, or I guess the next bleed would be right here. I'm just gonna lay this guide right here, and it's like right where this top lip of the fold here, because if, you know, the printer trims here, you wanna make sure that the bleed is up above this line, this where this fold is. So I'm going to put it right at that edge, and then I'm going to go up to Window and choose Transform. So with this palette open, and this is all shown in that video too, so if you want to take a look at that as well, you have X and Y coordinates, and that's basically where your rulers lay. So X and Y are where your guides are actually sitting at too. So watch when I move this. See how your Y coordinates are changing numbers now. It goes from 3.2 to 3.4. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to lay this guide down on this, you know, right where that trim is. I want to put my cursor right into the Y value. And I want to do a, oops, not a point. I want to do a negative right in that Y. I want to click right after the N, an inch. You don't have to do a space, just do a negative, which is right next to your plus sign, 0.125, because that's the bleed. And when you hit return, it's gonna set your guide to where that is. Okay, so that's where your bleed would be there. You're gonna just keep doing that. Let's go set one here. This is where that fold would be. It's going to trim here on this part, so we're going to want to set it there as well. So negative 0.125 here, and hit return, and it sets the guide there. So that would be perfect for these two sections here. All right, now it's going to trim here as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a vertical guide. We're just going to drag this over from the left side where the vertical ruler is and let it go right here where the fold is, because it's going to trim here as well. So we want to make sure we have both of those set as well. So in the x coordinate, we want to do a negative 0.125. And then we also want to go do another one. So we'll set another one here. Whoops, it's not quite right. There we go. Plus 0.125. Oops. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying here. Whoops. Ah. All right. So you want to go up to the x coordinate. I kept putting it in the wrong one. And you want to do a shift plus. I think that's kind of what I was doing wrong there. So that you're setting your bleeds up for this to be right along this line here. I don't think that maybe you may not need this one because it's actually bleeding on this side. So I could probably delete that one and set up this one here. Your bleeds are shown in your, somebody asked if we had to do that, shown as actual lines set up. Here, I'll show you real quick. So what you're gonna have to do is set up these bleeds like this. Hold on one second. Let's go back to assignment 2. I'm not sure why these are not showing. Having some loading issues here. There we go. So right here, it says your dye lines bleed area is 0.125. So just show that you have the bleed area. Okay. So if I were to look at your document, as long as I see these bleed lines in here, these guidelines, you're good. You also should have them on the outside because look, they're going to be trimmed here too. So the reason why you do that is not only they're going to be trimmed up here and on the side, but they're going to be trimmed here, here, here. So there's going to be a lot of trimming to do, if that makes sense for you guys. I mean, it's kind of hard to, yeah. All right, so you would set up these accordingly. So go ahead and get that in there. So I did a negative 0.25 for that one. This one would be positive 0.125, so a plus sign because it's on the right side. So you're just going to kind of get all those in there. Now when you do the horizontal below, I believe you do a, let's see here, oops, no, you do a positive. Nope. Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't switch over. Thank you. So you'll do, I just pulled a line here. I'm going to do positive 0.25. And you'll see that sometimes I'm switching too much and I don't know where I'm at. So I just put the positive right there, this guide, positive 0.125, and this one was the negative. Okay, so those are in there. That looks good. Now I would probably set one here because this is where it's going to trim right there. And I would just do a positive 0.25. And then I can also do, well, it's going to trim here, so I'm good. This is where it gets tricky because it'll trim there. Okay, we're not going to worry about that. Let's go over here. This is going to fold, it's not going to trim. So we're good there. Oh, it's going to trim right there. So we need to go left. Let's do, I'm sorry. I always get those screwed up. So negative 0.125, that goes to the left. There we go. So it's gonna give that bleed there as well. And then I already have this bleed set up. That looks good. These are gonna be trimmed in a kind of an interesting way here. So this will be, I could draw a trim line here because it's gonna be cut probably on a die line. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. It's a little harder when it's on an angle, but because these are going to be tucked in, because if you look at the actual package, this might not necessarily be a thing that you have to worry about because you're not going to be seeing or reading anything on here anyway. As long as they're solid colors, they're going to be tucked in. If there's anything kind of trimmed up in a weird way, nothing will really be cut off. So I don't think you need to worry about that. Down here, I would definitely set a bleed up here because they're going to punch this little notch out. So, you know, if you have something, which you probably wouldn't because, I don't know, it's so close to being where the bottom is and it tucks in. What am I doing here? Oh, I'm on the wrong axis here. Like I said, I took cold medicine today, so I'm totally kind of like a little out of it here. It's one of those things. And then I would do, yeah, the vertical ones. Now these would be for the knockout part here. So I would want to do to the right. Yeah. Not to the left, to the right. Sorry guys, negative 125. I'll get it here. Positive 125. There we go. This one would be negative. There we go. Also here, you could do your trim line as well on this side. I mean, like I said, it's going to be tucked in there, so it's not such a, as long as you have the main one set, you're good. Oops. There we go. All right, save that so you can see your guides. You can always hide your guides so it doesn't look so crazy, but that's pretty much for the printer to view anyway. So I think you're good to go. Any questions about that? As long as you know, when I open up yours and if I say show guides, I'm seeing that you have 0.125, 3/4 of an inch there set up. Okay. Yeah. If you want to do high guides quickly, just do Command and then the semicolon. If you are on a Mac, kind of hides them quickly there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the details again. I'm going to go right back into Canvas. Tuesday when we met, we did pretty much all of part 1, with the exception of the die lines, doing it a little bit more specifically there. What we're going to do is once you complete the die line, you're going to lock the die line layer to prevent accidental changes to the die layer. So what you're going to do is you're going to save it and then see where it says die line. We're going to hide the artwork so we don't see that. We're going to lock the die line. So just go ahead and hit that little lock next to the eyeball. And that way you can't move it, change it. It's all set. Okay, the next part of this is your rough. So now it's time to refine your thumbnail sketches by creating a rough layout. Rough layouts are larger and more refined than thumbnail sketches. It should be done to scale and correct size of your die line. The purpose of this stage is to work on your best design concept so the client can see a more refined solution. Even though a rough layout may look final, it's not your finished artwork at this point. This stage is used to identify package challenges such as clarity, simplicity, authenticity, and addressing the target audience, creating a brand image that is highly recognizable, and shelf impact. Rough layouts are also used to explore additional creative approaches suggested from client feedback to create a composition that is not only pleasing to the eye, but also crucially supports and communicates the message of the product. All right, so really what they're saying here is, we're doing a rough layout. So that means it's not the final one. We're just doing something to show hierarchy, every single kind of element, and thinking about the design elements and the principles of design. We're kind of exploring your options. So we're going to be refining it from here. So you're going to use correct size of die line. So once you have your die line ready, we're going to use this. You're going to create a rough layout using strongest concept identified from client feedback. This is kind of where you're going to hone in on your concept. You're going to add color to the logo you downloaded in a week 1 assignment per your final color scheme direction. Now, it doesn't have to be color. It could be, when they say color, yeah, it can be white. It can still be black. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a hue of a color either. Include all design elements and required information for each product. So all design elements required and required information are placed on artwork layer. If your chosen product requires a nutritional fact label, see week 3's assignment for information on those. All boxes require a barcode to be generated in order to sell the items. So you can use this generator. It has a link there. And then it just, it just tells you the code. Choose code 128 standard, enter 8 numbers, and click on create barcode. Choose EPS output in medium format and download. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do, does anybody have any questions about that? Let's see. What I would suggest is go back to your Word file that you're given. Okay. That folder that you downloaded in week 1's assignment, go back and check that folder out. There's a Word file in there of what needs to be on the bottle. So if you're doing the wine bottle, this is kind of what that Word file looks like. And it also gives you the logo in an AI file, so native Illustrator file. So this basically gives you all the information that you need for the bottle. Now, it doesn't mean that it'll look like this. This is typically how clients give you information. They'll just give you a Word document, and then you copy and paste it in, and then you kind of play around with it. So, and then the actual logo, go back to my Illustrator file. They're going to give you to open up an Illustrator, and this one is shown like this. So this is what it looks like given to you guys. And this is an AI file. All right, so this needs to be included on the box. You can include it more than once, and just kind of keep in mind your design principles and kind of how you're using hierarchy when you're doing that. Go back to your mood board. Open up my mood board. I would say look in your folder, look in your Word file first. Look at the logo, and then go back and revisit your mood board. Remember this mood board I did? Go back and revisit this, kind of take a look at the imagery that you selected that you were inspired by. This doesn't mean that you have to find exact imagery that looks like this. This is just giving you an idea of the direction that you want to go. So don't think that you have to emulate anything in here. You shouldn't like copy anything. Just be inspired by it. You can use the colors that you came up with if that's something that you want to do. But I would definitely just use this as a reference to be inspired by. But definitely revisit this. Okay. Once you do that, start thinking about, what are my sketches looking like? How am I close to the concept that I believe I want to go with? Which one's stronger? You might do 3 and eliminate from there your sketches. The sketches, you'll kind of set up your kind of like your hierarchy of elements. So you'll kind of know where you want to put things where, and figure out where the logo is going to be. And then you'll do a lot of experimenting too once you get into the actual Illustrator document to play around with that. Another thing that you can do is go online and just look up, and I just Googled wine box for mine because I'm doing wine boxes, and you can kind of see how some of these are more creative than others. Some are like wood texture, but there are some wine boxes in here that you can take a look at and be inspired by and see kind of how they handled the overall hierarchy of their focal image of their boxes. This one, for instance, so you can kind of see big to small information, their focal points, more of the background textured image as well as the name of it. But take a look at different boxes, be inspired by what you see. If you have something at home or in a local store that you can check out, just to see how they handle the overall hierarchy of type. I think that's a really important, I mean, I'm sitting here, I have a bottle in front of me right now. It's not open, but I have it in front of me just to kind of reference from, because, you know, it's always good to see what other, you know, labels and boxes look like. Some of the boxes are bigger than others, but you kind of get a general idea, and, you know, some are different shapes, but you get the idea of how they handle the hierarchy. In the sides and the back. Some of them may not show all the sides and backs, but, you know, you kind of have to dig around and take a look. So I definitely would investigate that, because, you know, you want to see how other people are doing it. Kind of make sure that yours is making sense for the elements that you're placing on there, but then also making it look different too. Playing around with type and the overall hierarchy. Okay, so once you do that, I then would, you know, and I'm going in through free fonts here, go ahead and check out fonts that you believe might unify with your elements. So you might already kind of have something in mind in your mood board, but you don't quite have the font figured out yet. So I just went to a couple free font sites. This one just happens to be one of them that you can plug in your name here, or plug in whatever you want to see the name as, and hit update, and you can see that actual typeface in or the name in that typeface. And then you can download whatever you want to play around with. I would actually download at least 3 of them just to play around with it and get something that's going to unify with your overall image. Now, if you have an image, you might not have an image. It might be just strictly typography, and that's okay. That would be beautiful too. So it's all based on your overall concept. You could have imagery and type. You have illustration and type. So what I did was I just went on Pixabay and was just looking up some really cool textures. I was looking up vines, you know, something that kind of goes along with the idea, the concept that I wanted to go with. And I actually found a really cool, like a swirly vine that I wanted to go with, and I thought it really worked well with this typeface that I chose. And the typeface that I chose, and we'll kind of see if it works. I didn't put them together yet, but it was this Europe Underground typeface. I thought this was kind of a cool typeface. It looked very unifying with the vine that I found. And the vine that I found, let me show you real quick here. And it's a free high-res vector artwork that I downloaded, which is great. It's called Branches, but this is what it looks like. It's very abstract. This is something you could create too. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to find it on there. Yeah. So, I mean, I could easily do this in Illustrator. I just quickly found it and thought, oh, I want to use this. So with this and then that font that I chose, I thought, how cool would this be to kind of implement into my document? So this is a high-res vector. Well, vector is really high-res anyway. It's a vector piece, so, you know, there's no resolution in it, right? So I download it as a vector. If you have an image, you want to download it as high-res image, you know, from the start. You don't want any type of pixelization happening, okay? Now, go back to your template. Now, what I want you to pay attention to, it talks about doing all your artwork on your artwork layer, but you already named artwork whenever we placed in your actual template in here. So what I want you to do is either change artwork to template and then create a new layer that says artwork, or that is named artwork. And you can move that above both of these. Or you can leave artwork, still named artwork, but then create a new layer that says something like rough design or something like that. I think that's important to keep the template just in case you need to do any alterations. You can hide it, lock it, just like you did the die line. I would show the die line so you have something to reference, obviously, but I would create a new layer on top. That would be something like rough design or artwork if you change that. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, with that being said, you can always go back and refer to this as, okay, where's the front going to be? Well, it tells me A is front, sides, back, panel. So A, front, sides, and then these are the sides. So front is the first panel, the side is the second, back is the third, and then the side is the last. Knowing that, this is kind of the top, you'll see this very top when you undo the flap. So you'll see this kind of looking down at the box. The bottom, you know, typically, yeah, you guys could look at it. This is where the flap will tuck in. Sometimes the UPC code can be on here as well. This is where the flap glues underneath this panel. So really, you're not going to put anything on this flap here, because this is where the glue is going to be. Everything else is just kind of relative there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and see how I would approach this. Now it's completely up to you and how you would go about this. I want to kind of keep it simple. I'm going to go on my artwork layer, and I'm just going to draw this square, and I'm going to give this just a black color, maybe a deep dark black rich color. That didn't do it. There we go. And I can play around with this too. I can always kind of add a texture if I need to, if it's not looking really dynamic. But this is the front. This is what everybody's going to see when they see it on the shelf. So I really want to make this look really cool. All right, so we know we need the logo, but the logo's in black. Now, I know I want to use black for my background. That's just the idea that I'm having. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this white. So I just completely made it white just by selecting white after doing a select all. I'm going to do a copy. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to do a paste. Now what happens is it kind of fills in some of these, so I need to kind of go back and play around with that because I filled in areas I probably shouldn't have filled in because it was grouped. So let's go ahead and change that while we're in here. So it would be the smaller lines, and you can revert that a little bit differently. I could have done this a little differently. Let me show you how we can revert this. Let me see here. I'll go back to Illustrator. And there should be a color setting here. Edit color. So let's do that because it's not a color. Let's do a select all. There we go. Okay. So let's go to edit colors. Let me try to invert. It might invert it to white. There we go. So this is kind of what I want here. Now, if I add texture, there's going to be an issue with these being filled in. So you might have to do it manually at that point too. Let's do a paste of that just to show you what it looks like. And you can tell right there that even that black is a little different, but oops, we're going to just use this for now. So, you know, it looks really nice and graphic. Just make sure it's all selected and all grouped. And I'm just going to kind of leave this here for now. I can even throw it over here if I just want to add it to my artboard. And like I said, if I ever add like a texture in here, see how that black is? I can go in and with my direct selection tool and just do a shift select all of these areas in here and just get rid of the insides. Now I'll have to make sure that the outsides, what am I doing here, are black. I might not be able to change these all individually like I wanted to. Oh, interesting. I might have to knock these out actually because these are all points. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to do something special there. I didn't create the logo, so I'm not quite sure how it was done. That's why I'm a little, so I'll have to do some knocking out. All right, either way, if you guys are changing the color with it, you're going to go back to your logo here and you're going to change, say, I'm going to ungroup it first. and say you're going to change certain colors. Ungroup. Ungroup. Like the direct selection tool is a good tool to kind of pick certain colors in there that you can go ahead and change it to. You might just need to go in and shift select certain ones to change it to as well. Okay, before putting it in there. All right, so let's go ahead and keep going here. So I'm going to move this to the side, make sure it's grouped, just for now. And now I want to try out that, remember that font that I had? I want to try out that font. Let me make sure I have my rich black selected. I'm going to hit go. Now the font that I select, oh, I want this white, not black, sorry. The font that I selected was Europe Underground is what it was called. And I already downloaded it, so you just download it. It's free to your font book, depending on if you're on a Mac. So here's the name. And I'm going to go just grab my type character box. So Command T gets to your character box. And you can play around with the size, the point size here. And I'm going to go ahead and type in the name of that type that I downloaded. So there's a light, there's an underground, oh, light or like a bold. So I'm going to do a light. Now it looks pretty thin, and it looks like the letters are a little bit, oh, a little kind of close. So I'm going to kind of space it out a little bit. So kerning my letters just a little bit here. Let's check out, put a little bit more space in there. Very kind of interesting font. Since it's so thin, maybe I could do something where the name is a little bit bigger, and then the vineyards, you know, kind of play around with that, you know, how you want that to look. And then what I'm going to do is going to go back to my vine. Remember that vine that I had? And I'm going to make this white. So I'm going to change the color, do a copy. I'm going to paste that in. So kind of figure out what your concept's going to be first. That's important. And go from there. All right, so I'm going to start sneezing here. If I do, I apologize. I just wanted something, and see now this C is looking a little heavier on here, so maybe I'll just do like a little V and a little C to kind of even that out a little bit more. So it looks a little bit more balanced, more symmetrical, not as heavy on the one side, kind of gives it a different look too. Let's see here. All right. So, and what I could do is just play around with this. You know, this is where kind of it gets kind of cool. I can actually play around with the width of this line, so it's maybe a little thinner. I can duplicate this, spin it around. Maybe it looks better on the top and bottom, or just the top. You know, maybe just the bottom is a little bit of this with the logo at the very bottom. And what I would suggest is, you know, obviously you're going to look at your concepts too, but you know, you definitely want to play around with it in your program as well. So don't feel like once you place it in there, that's where it's going to go. You know, really experiment, see kind of what works. The logo doesn't have to be huge. You know, as long as you can read it, you know, this is probably, I could probably go maybe a little bit bigger with this, but doesn't have to be big. You know, a lot of people think, oh, the logo has to be huge. I think what you need to have is some type of focal point to pull you in, okay? Once you get an interesting focal point, you know, you can go from there as far as like what you want in there. Don't forget, you have other information that you need to provide in here. Maybe not necessarily on the front. I think typically the boxes, just like the labels, you have the name of the company, the brand, and then you also have the type of wine that it is. So remember that word file that I showed you earlier? Let's go back to that. Here's the wine type. So you have to have the wine type. You have to pick one for this particular project that you want to use. I'm going to blow my nose here, guys. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. That you want to use. So choose one of the types. I'm going to choose Merlot. I think this would be a good Merlot one. So I'm going to copy that and I'll paste that back in there. If you want to check out the types of wines, you can check this link out here. And then also you can have the, here's the logo. So we got that in there. You can have the year on there, okay? Sometimes you can even have where it was bottled. So, you could say Napa Valley or California only, and then have the wine type with that. So Napa Valley is where it was from. So let's go back to Illustrator here. So what I mean by that is, now this is all secondary to the name. So remember that, okay? So Merlot, which you can't see here, I'm gonna get it in white. And let's do it all in caps. And now we're gonna make this a little bit, we're gonna make this a regular, but really a lot smaller. I can spell here, Merlot. Oops. And then, what date was that? I forget. 2012. Because it's so bold. Let's see what it looks like in a light too. Let me get a little bit bigger. Let's do regular, smaller. We could do a pop of color at this point, or we could, we could do a pop of color all caps. Let's see what that looks like. Oops, this is what I wanted to do. Sorry, guys. Merlot, and then have Napa Valley. So Merlot would be maybe bigger. Napa Valley would be smaller. Make sure my leading is working here. See how I have kerning issues here with this type? See how it's like spaced out here, but not necessarily here? Like the ME are kind of closer together. So I need to fix that. So some typefaces are like that. Yeah, you have to be a little, change it on a, I can get this bigger here. There we go. See how it looks more balanced there. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. See, she got it. Oops. Then what we can do is maybe make this like a lighter gray. And then maybe this is like a red or something. Like a plum red. There we go. Make sure it's readable. It just has enough contrast so it's readable here. Get a little bit later. So it's there, it's readable, but it's more discreet. It's not right in your face. What I might want to do is just kind of pull this stuff down a little bit more. So I can have a little bit more space in between there. It's nice to have some breathing room, especially on a wine. And let's make sure that these are all centered too. So I'm going to select all three of these elements, go to align, and choose my center align. I might have to move this over on my template so it's off a little bit. There we go. So now I know my name and my category of wine, type of wine, and years and logo are all uh, aligned perfectly. Now, if I didn't want the logo to be so bright, which I don't mind that jumping off because it's smaller. I could tone that white down a little bit. But I kind of like it. I like the way that that is. I can add maybe another element here, say part of this. Let's go ahead and paste this in here. So let's ungroup this. Play around with this pattern. You know, this is such a cool pattern. So if you have a really cool pattern in yours that you want to play around with, like say for instance, if you just wanted to use these three and then make it smaller, and then rotate it a little bit. That's an element you can use as like a dividing space in between here. It kind of adds to it a little bit. I can also use the leaf part if you don't like that part. You can use a leaf. Just make it a little smaller. When you make it smaller, sometimes if you don't have a specified stroke being the same width, you might need to redo the width of that stroke, but you kind of get the idea there. That's kind of, make it a little smaller here. There we go. Kind of looks weird by itself, but I'll probably change it up a little bit. Pulling parts in there, maybe even just the swoopy line with the actual. It kind of looks odd with it separate, so maybe I would just do the circles then. You know, do something with that. Play around with it. Keep it simple. But you know, you have a nice, like, I have a nice abstract image to pull from. So there's some really cool things that I can do with this if I wanted to play around with it. And maybe this is the case where, you know, if there's different types, say this is the Merlot and the other one's like a cab, maybe this circle changes based upon, as far as the color goes, on each one of those. So maybe this one would be a darker red and the cab would be a lighter red. But the circle would remain the same, and that's a differentiation between that box and the other cab. So think about it in that regards too, you know, like how can you make this flexible enough to have different lines of types of wine, you know, because you might have different wines. All right, so this is the front of the box. Say we're good to go. I think everything else can be on the sides. Like go back to the Word file. We have to see what we have going on here. So we have the type of wine, the Chateau Vineyards, this is the wine producer. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have this on here, just as long as you have the logo on here. See how it says logo? I already have the date. Okay, so then the address of the bottler, the name and address of the bottler, I would say probably would have this on the back of your box. Okay, so this would be on the back, and then percentage of alcohol by volume. So all of this information would be also maybe either on the back. Sometimes they put it on the side too. So that's really up to you on what you want to do. And then the government warning. Typically, if you see it on a label of a wine bottle, it's at the very bottom, real small type, as small as you can get, because this is the stuff that designers don't really want to put on there, but they have to. So we want to make sure that it's on there, it's readable, but it's not the first thing that you see. Okay, barcode could be next to that, and then the additional information. This is shown at the very bottom of this document, but this is actually should be what you highlight maybe on the sides or the back after you have the name repeated again. This should be a little bigger than all of this information, okay? Because this is the description. This is what, if you read a wine label, maybe not the box, you turn the label or the wine bottle around, that would be what you would see on the back of the box. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to copy this actual words here, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to start with that first because I know I want this to be, this is the side. I could have the story here too. I could break up the story into two for one side and the other side, or I could just have it on the back as well. Now this is a color box that I'm just going to kind of pull all the way to the right here. We do have a bleed set here. Let's see here if I can pull this up. So I probably pull this all the way to the bleed here. Same on the right. Of course, this is probably just going to be black anyway. I'm just going with it being very simple. Oops. Let's see, artwork. Yeah, see. I'm going to pull this. I'm going to duplicate this shape here. Oops. And I'm going to pull this shape. See, right now it's on my die line. I had to unlock it. So I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go right on my artwork and just do a paste because I don't really want to change what was on my one layer. I want to keep that the same. I want it to be on my artwork layer. That makes sense. I'm just going to fill that with black, and then this I'm going to bleed to the left. Oops. I didn't mean to cut it. I meant to bleed it. There we go. And then I'm going to bleed on the top. See that bleed up there? We want that to bleed on the top, and we want this to bleed on the bottom. If you need to zoom in, it's hard to see. You remember how I made those bleeds? You want to make sure anything that's going to be cut on the trim edge, you need to set it to your bleed. There we go. And then make sure the top's set. There we go. And for some reason, I deleted that bleed there. Nope, no, it's there. I thought I deleted it. Okay. Let me hide this guide. All right, this looks good. That looks good. Okay. If you need to see, let's see here. If you need to see your guides, just command semicolon will bring that up. If you're having a hard time seeing, see how I kind of pulled that box all the way to the right, so it's a little hard to see where my lines are. You can always make it so the artwork's a little more transparent. Now, by doing that, you want to make sure that, or you can actually do a transparency to this box too, but you want to go back to the way it was originally. But nevertheless, it's you can also put in those guides and just see that, you know, on your document as well. I'm just going to pull this down just a little bit. See how I can see my guides now. I just have to make sure I go back and change that. But I want to see my guides. I want to paste in that copy into my artwork. This is the back part. What I can do is start, you know, deciding, okay, my grid structure here, I have the name. Let's see, it almost looks like it's centered in there. But you can start gridding this out if you want. Command J here. Hold on one second. There we go. So what I'm doing is kind of cutting this into 3 parts. And then maybe having the intro in there, kind of playing around with it a little bit. Oh, this is the side here. Hold on. It's the back. All right, so I'm going to place in the back copy in here. And it kind of fills text in there. I'm going to do a select all and then paste. Oh, not what I wanted. I have to go back to my Word file. Sorry, guys. Some reason didn't copy. Copy. Paste. There we go. Now I'm going to make this all white or, you know, whatever color that you want that looks good. I'm going to make this probably, this is 8 point right now. let's try 14 by 18. Usually you want to do like a 20% difference between point size and your leading for easy readability, ease of reading. Right now this is regular. If I change it to light, now I don't necessarily have to go with what I used for my actual copy on my front, but if I want to keep it consistent, then I will. Maybe I'll just bump it up a little bit too here. 16 by 20, maybe I'll try that. That looks good, just because this is a really thin font. And then what I want to do is make sure that it's flowing in a way that looks good. It's not, you know, there's not too many hyphens. Everything looks good. And I'm doing mine as kind of like a centered look, just to match and be consistent with the front. So if I wanted to see how that looks with the black, I'll just dial my opacity back up here. Command semicolon so I can see what's going on. And I can actually put white lines in here just to designate lines, just for the sake of seeing it. But that's basically where I'm at right now. I'm not quite sure if I'm really liking this font for this. It's a little hard to read as a group of text. So what I might do is just choose something that's sans serif, but maybe not this typeface. That might be a little easier to read. Let's see what I got here. Now I wouldn't go, you know, I wouldn't use a sans serif or anything like that. I want to keep it very similar, but, you know, easier to read. Something like that might be good. I'm going to dial it down a little bit, 14 again by maybe 16, because that's getting a little big. We don't want it to look clunky. When I say by clunky, is when you get type to be too big, it makes it look not as expensive. So you really want to make sure you have that balance, that look. I have some returns in here I need to fix. But for the most part, this looks a little bit better, I think. There we go. I think that looks a little better. I mean, I can kind of adjust this a little bit more, but it's getting a little bit better there. All right, and then I probably would center it a little bit better. So with that being said, I have returns in here. All right. Quite sure why there's such a big box here. Try to get rid of my spaces. There we go. Then if I want to center this, I'll just have to draw like a square here where my bleeds are and make sure it's just centered. Just shift select, align, center. There we go. Now I'll just get rid of this box. Okay, any questions about that? And then you can carry over your elements, okay? So like for instance, those little circles, I can carry over those circles. Maybe this time I do 3. Maybe they're smaller. Oops. Make sure they're aligned. And make it a little smaller here. Okay, won't be too big. Group and then center. So I'm just kind of adding these. I'll drag this down. Oops. So it gives kind of like a nice little frame around there. I can also make my art bigger. Like say if I wanted that to be bigger, I just have to pay attention to how big this gets as far as the width of it. So like say if I wanted to make this really big and stretch across, so it'd be part of the whole label design. Oops. I could do that as well. So don't think that you have to just solely design right on that front label there. You can really kind of do some really funky things. Blowing this up, just make sure, see the stroke went up when I made it larger. I'm going to go back to 0.5 so it doesn't get so big. And you can do some really cool, you know, unifying type things here. Go back to my layers because for some reason this is on a different layer. Let's put this right in front. There we go. And then shift it around based on like the overall look of it. All right, now I'm gonna go and make, oh, I'm gonna sneeze again, my square shape here. Now this is the top part. I can also put the logo here. I can just click right on the square, do 4x4, make sure it's accurate, and make this black. Rich black is on the lower right-hand corner. It's richer than the other black on the left-hand corner, just a FYI there. And then just make sure that this is all kind of above if you want that design to kind of carry through. Same on the bottom, copy paste. And what you can do if you want to carry that, see how that's notched out there? Unlock your die line, just copy this layer, do a copy, lock it, go to your artwork layer and then hit paste. And this will just copy. That way you can save your die line so you're not messing with it too much if you need to change it. The rich black layer, there we go. And again, just make sure if you have any elements that need to go over top, that they are going over top. And we can play around with this so it kind of bleeds a little bit better there. There we go. All right, let me get rid of, I would just leave that there. Same thing on the bottom, like you could copy this and just totally flip it. So let's flip it maybe like here. You can drag it down at the bottom so it kind of hits the bottom part. I like those little circles. Maybe make it a little smaller. So it's always constantly just like playing around with just different patterns and the way it looks, how it's laying on the flaps and all that good stuff. Okay, I'm gonna save this. So I have my back information here. I could definitely repeat the name here. So if I wanted to do an alt drag, either have it above here or below here, I could definitely repeat it. Sometimes, sometimes the logo is repeated, you know, on the top here. And also, oops, on the top flap. And then based on how you open it is how you'll see that. So you want to pay attention that if you need to, I would probably rotate it 180 so that whenever you're opening it up, usually that flap is in front of your face when you're opening up a box. So you want the logo to be right reading. Okay, so that would be good to do there. What else do we need to do here? Let's go back. I think all the nitty-gritty stuff is left. So let's go back to our Word file. So basically all we have left is the name and business of the bottler right here. All this information. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all that and then the barcode. So I'm going to do copy. I'm going to go right back to Illustrator. And I'll just delete what I don't need. So I'm going to go over here on my artboard. Just draw out a text box. I'm going to paste in what I need. So I'm going to delete name and address of bottler because I don't need that. I just need produced and bottled by. So let me zoom in here. Sure, I'm getting that. Take out all the bullet points not needed. Vineyard destination. So let's get rid of that and do like a little shift. Oh, sorry guys. Thank you. I just pasted it in this box on the artboard here. And now I'm deleting this information that I don't need. Sorry guys. So any type of bullet points you don't need, go ahead, get rid of. You guys are keeping me in check. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Mandatory. So we just need, we can take this off completely. We don't need that. We don't need this information, just what the contents is. We just need this information, so we don't even need this. So you're going to do some editing here. Just make sure you're getting the stuff that doesn't need to be in there out of there. Now, government warning, I think, yeah, this can go out, but it does start with government warning here, so you'll want to keep this in. So this is the information that I just edited. I know you guys can't see it real good. Let me see if I can switch it back to white. There we go. Must be some weird spacing going on here. Okay. So this is what I edited from that Word file. So you can see, I mean, I can even take this off too. You know, it's just telling you who it is, where they're located, what the vineyard's called. And it really kind of goes along with that too. And then it has your alcohol content. This is all very secondary information that can be placed somewhere very small. I'm going to copy that. And on a label, it's typically shown on the back, but you can put it on the side if you want. Completely up to you. I think a lot of people look at it on the back. So there's some ways that you can deal with it. You can kind of play around with that. I'm going to put it on the back just because I'm just going to keep it consistent with everything that I have going on here. All right, so now let's go ahead and draw some lines out here to kind of adhere to. Oops, there we go. I'm just aligning this with the type that I have above there. All right, so I just pasted in all my information. Again, this can be very small. The government warning especially can be small. I think this has to be, the government warning may have to be in a thicker typeface. I don't know if there's regulations on that actually. But because I usually typically see it where it's a little thicker, I'm gonna do a little bit of a thicker, different typeface. So I'm using Myriad. Let's do condensed bold, or let's see. Yeah, semi-condensed, we'll do that. And then we'll make it small. So we'll do like 8-point type. And I'm not hitting all of it. Let me zoom in here so I can get all of my copy here. There we go. So myriad. Let's do a semi-condensed, or no, yeah, semi-condensed. Let's do 8 point and then auto for letting. Why didn't I have all that? It's driving me nuts. Am I not selecting that? Ah, sorry guys, hold on 1 second. Here we go. Some of this looks bold, some of it doesn't, so let me make sure this is semi-bold. There we go. And typically too, this is really close to where the UPC code is, but I'm gonna put the UPC code somewhere else rather than have it here. Sometimes on the label, it's right by this little blurb here. Put it somewhere else though. All right, so let me zoom out here. And then we can place this at the very bottom too. Let me just see what's going on here with my elements. Okay, so you want to make sure none of your elements are getting in the way of the information right here. I'm kind of having some issues. So what I would do is just kind of edit this out, either make this more transparent or just delete these elements altogether or move it so that I can't see it. So there's a couple things that you can do. Give me 1 second here. So I can either move this so that it's not quite in the way, but that kind of pulls it away, and I kind of wanted to see it on the side a little bit. Or I could kind of eliminate some of my artwork there. Or I can kind of shift this so that I can see it maybe more on the side and bottom here. Okay, kind of maybe works a little bit better. Actually, I'm gonna probably slide this down a little bit. And then, I think this looks good. I think, let me take a look at this real quick here. I think this is somewhere where you can maybe make this bold. This stuff could be definitely smaller. I would say keep it like 10 point type around there. This stuff can be bigger. So you can see I'm kind of putting in a hierarchy. I'm just not sure if I should have this. I'm almost wondering if I could just have this say it here. It's almost the same thing. Just repeating it. Just kind of eliminate that altogether. Since it's repeated so many times, plus I have the logo up there. I think that like works pretty well. Put the logo up a little bit away from here, balance it a little bit more. And I can also bring this up a little bit too. Okay. All right, so that pretty much sets my back. It's pretty full. If I could try maybe putting the intro here, I could break it up into 2 sentences on each side. That's another thing that I can do. But I had this idea of maybe using the name on the sides, and I've seen this done before, where it's, oops, you know, kind of larger, but placed vertically, almost more like an aesthetic part of the sides than anything. So let's see how that looks. It may work, it may not work. So I'm going to copy this, paste it, and I'm going to make it so that it rotates a negative 180 this way. And then I'm just going to change it up so, oops, so that this is all the same size maybe, or even eliminating just even the vineyards since I already have the name up there and just focusing on the name itself, Chateau. Now I've seen ones like this. Let me go a little bit wider with the maybe have it. So I've seen them where they kind of stretch all the way up, but maybe in this instance, maybe it just needs to be somewhere larger, but kind of centered on this side. Same thing here. Something different. You know, finding that space. And then as I'm looking at this, it might be kind of cool to do something where, I don't know, like maybe, I was gonna say maybe have the U be that darker color, but I almost worry it might not be readable in that regard. So maybe just making this a little bit lighter may help that. I don't know, it's so thin, it might be hard to read. But I was kind of looking at that as being a possibility. But yeah, it might be a little hard to read. So I'll probably go back to the, oops, go back to the white. But you know, if this was thick enough, that might be something that I could play around with just to give a little pop there. You can definitely put the logo on the sides too, but I think if you have it on the back and the front and the flap, I think that's pretty much, you got it covered. I don't think you need to keep repeating it. Just having the name on the side is good too. Now, you know, this is where the mocking up would be good, just to kind of fold it and see how it works. I just read your Lisa, I just read your comments there. That's something that you might want to just quickly mock up. I don't know if you guys have printers or not. Most of you guys probably don't, but it might be something cool to do and try if you do. I'm going to copy this again and paste this in my art layer so I have the flat. There we go. You know, just test it out. So what I'm doing is I'm just going right back to my die line and choosing these flaps to copy and paste into my artwork so that I have it, so I can kind of play around with the. Looks like I have to fix this one. So it doesn't quite have a closed shape here. Okay. There we go. Getting closer, but very simple. You know, I'm not going too crazy with this, keeping it very simple. The only thing I need to do is the UPC code. So we'll handle that in a second here. This in place. And this is not grouped. I thought it was grouped. It's only pain in the butt part of this, right? Should I group? I thought this was grouped all together here. That looks grouped. Okay, group that. Bring it to the front. Let me see. I'm gonna make sure this is not. Yeah, it looks good. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go with all black in the background. You might Oh, thank you. You might use a texture. It might, you know, obviously something different, pattern. Yours might look completely different. Hopefully it'll look completely different than mine, right? Okay. And then just a you guys excited about this project though? It's pretty cool. You do some really neat things. Can come up with some really cool, interesting, I mean, you can do whatever you want. There's no, the only guidelines, there's what you have to have on there. You know, other than that, you have all creative freedom to do whatever you want. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool, pretty cool. All right. And it's okay if your artwork goes over the actual artboard, you know, that's something that will kind of, you know, be cut off eventually anyway. So you're not going to see it in your bleeds. Just make sure you have it on there. Any questions about that so far? I just have the generator. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to do the UPC code generator, because I actually never used this before in this, how they're kind of explaining it through here. It sounds pretty easy though. It looks like you just go to this website here and you type in, I don't know if you guys ever did this before. It says here, choose code 128 standard, enter 8 numbers, and click on create barcode. No? Okay. We'll do it all together for the first time here. All right, so choose 128 standard, usually, there we go. So when you go into this website, just go ahead and click down the drop-down menu and choose code standard, 128 standard. Type in your code. 8 has to be 8 numbers. What else here? It says in our, before I click OK, 8 numbers, click on create barcode, choose EPS output in medium format. Excuse me, first, kind of, my tongue's not working great today. Create barcode, we want EPS here, we want medium. Let's do create barcode, easy peasy, and download, look at that. And then you're gonna save it. It's gonna download in your download folder. Takes a little while, wow. And then you could just move it. It looks like it's saving it as a PDF though here, it's interesting. All right. So I would say your barcode would probably go on this bottom part here, right? Because that's like right where you'll see it. The flap goes into here. So I'm going to go file place. Probably would be different if it was a label, but that's where I see it going. And the barcode usually, you know, I think it has to be at least 1.5 inches wide. I'm just going to draw it out here. See my guide so I can see where I'm at. If I go up to transform, my transform palette up here, that's already showing. So it's showing me that my width is 2 inches. So if you go to the transform palette, it'll tell you to, not just an info, but transform to almost a little bit over 2 by 1.5. I think that's good. I think that, you know, you don't want it to be too big and not too small, because if it's too small, it might be hard to scan. If it's too big, it'll just look too big. I think that's a good ratio. So I just placed in the PDF there. It looks pretty good. And there you go. So when you're done, Let's go back to our weekly reminders here, or specs. You're going to name your file assignment 2, and you're going to save it as native Illustrator file. That's what the AI is. Submit the native Illustrator file for grading. Now there's one more step. Do you guys know the step that you need to do before you save it as an Illustrator file? It doesn't say it in here, but think about it. What if I don't have your typeface? You probably want to outline it, right? Because when you outline type, I don't necessarily have to have your typeface. Yeah. But the important part of this step is you almost want to do, well, you do want to save it as 2 files. Because if you just save over this one, say you do a create outline and then you save over it with this same file name, if I say, oh, you need to kern your letters differently, or you need to have this bigger and point size for your type, you won't be able to go in and actually take the type tool and change it, because it's going to be no longer a typeface. It'll be a shape. So what you need to do is save it as your assignment to, your name.ai, save that before you do anything, and then do a file save as. This is the second step. And I would probably just put an underscore or something so this is the outline version. Just type outline. So you have one that's just a regular assignment to .ai, and then you have the outline. Just hit save. And then you're going to do a select all. So you're going to go up to edit. Oh, I'm sorry, select all. So it's going to select everything, and that's okay. We want to do that because there might be type that's on the side that you don't see. So just do a select all, go up to type on your menu bar, and then choose create outlines. And what that's going to do is going to create outlines. So now I can, if I click onto my type, it's no longer a font. It's a shape. It's a vector shape. So when you save this, go file save, this is the outline version. That's what you're going to send me, okay? It's because if you don't, I might not have that typeface. Yeah, so that's important. That's the important step, which wasn't provided in here, but I don't think so. Let me double check. I'm foggy-headed here. Submit the native file for grading. Yeah, so submit, and I'll type a reminder in here in the announcements to do that. Just make sure that you're not saving over your original version. Okay. Now, if you're doing the Wild Bill's Gourmet Hot Sauce and Perfume, you're going to have a little bit of a different spec. I think Wild Bill's Gourmet Hot Sauce is almost similar in size, but the perfume bottle is definitely different. So you wouldn't follow everything that I would, save originals first and outlines. Yep, there you go. Obviously, I can't do all of them in the lecture, so I just kind of chose one to do. So hopefully you guys can take from what I showed you and do your version. So when I open up your file, I should open it up with the outlines without any issues linking your fonts, because what happens is if I open your file up and I don't have your typeface, it's going to replace it with another typeface, so it's going to look completely different. It's going to have this pink like highlight over it too, so it's gonna kind of look really different. Oh, thank you. So this was inspired by my mood board with all the little like vines and stuff that I liked. It might not look totally like my mood board, but you kind of get the idea. Also, don't forget, I'm gonna look at your layers to see if you did everything appropriately. Let's go back to my mood board just really quickly here, just to see kind of where I came from. So you can see how I was, I like the whole black and white look. I like the vine, but I didn't quite go necessarily similar to a lot of these. I just took the essence of it and went with what I thought would be perfect for this brand. I could go back and change things too. Like say if I thought this was too dark, I could go back and start changing different parts of my piece that might make it look a little different, so play around with it, see what you think works best for yours. just make it flexible enough if it's like, you know, to change like that. Say if this was going to be a Cabernet, maybe the whole box color would change like that, and then just the name would change and the little dot color would change. So, you know, make it flexible enough to have that happen. I just forgot this flop up here. I forgot. But you kind of get the idea of hopefully how to set this up and approach it. Any questions about that? All right. So yeah, so that's kind of what's due. There's a lot of work in there. So I would get started as soon as possible so you can have time to kind of play around with that and experiment and, have fun with it. I would say come up with at least 3 if you can. If you have time to do 3 concepts, and then they can look similar, but you're kind of playing around with maybe where the type's being placed, how the overall, maybe what imagery that you're putting in there. And I would do one that you think would work best. The second one, maybe doing a little altered, and the third one, maybe completely opposite of what you were thinking, so that you can kind of really experiment and see, and you just never know. You might be kind of onto something when you're trying something completely different too. All right, so don't forget your assessment 2 is a quiz. So this will kind of be covering everything within your assessment midterm. And this is all the stuff that's going to be on in your quiz is on your week 1 and 2 readings and videos. There are 15 questions on the quiz, and it's not timed. Be careful to read the question. It's 50 points, so it kind of all adds up. So make sure you're studying all of the information in your readings and videos. I think it's very helpful to go through that anyway with everything that you're doing in this class. You don't have to show your sketches. If I were to teach this class again, I would say show them in week 1, where it didn't say to, but I think that would have been a probably a good thing to do. At this point, you are going to go back to your sketches and kind of pick one that you think you're going to choose for this concept. Okay, so just a couple things to review here before we wrap it up, and if you have anything you want to share. Yeah, exactly, Lisa, I know. Sometimes I'm a quick reader through quizzes, and then I'm like, I should have read it at least 3 times before I answered it. I get it. All right, so just some things to keep in mind. Have a strong focal point in terms of your design. So a key element to any good composition is a strong focal point, as it helps your viewer's eyes naturally settle on the important pieces of your design first. This could be, the name. This could be part of your pattern. This could be an image that you chose. So make sure you have a strong focal point. Have a direction for the eye to flow. So remember, you want the eye to first land on the main focal point, but then where does it go from there? So think of your eye as far as like traveling. You don't want to confuse the eye, because people then get disinterested. They're not interested anymore. So you want to make sure you have a direct flow for the eye to go. That's has to do with your hierarchy too. And then the scale and hierarchy they go work hand in hand. So scale and visual hierarchy are creative fundamentals that can really make or break your package design. Hierarchy is just kind of the importance of what you look at first, second, third. Scale has something to do with that too, and emphasis. Number 4, use elements that complement each other. So a common error in compositions is using images or design elements that don't complement each other. And then there's a disconnect. So you might have a really beautiful logo, but then all of your other elements don't unify. So it kind of makes this weird look, disconnect. You saw how I chose my typeface for the name, for the actual name of the type of wine, and then you saw how I unified it with the actual aesthetics, the elements that I use. So they're unified together. They look like they belong together. Therefore, they're shown. You look at it visually together. It's not, something's not sticking out in a bad way. So there's rules for package design. There's rules for everything in design. You wouldn't think so, because it's so what we do is so creative, but there are rules for package design. Number one is clarity and simplicity. So always keep in mind that with simple design creative, you can build a more appealing graphic. So the packaging design should not confuse the consumers. And that was kind of what I was going for in mind, keeping it simple. There's also honesty. So by depicting a product 10 times better than it actually is, you're misleading and ultimately disappointing the consumer. So think about that. If you have, if you look at the, I know I want to say cheaper, but inexpensive wines versus the more expensive wines, you should see kind of a difference between the two, maybe visually. In the logo, that's for the wine logo. Let me see here. That's a good question. You know what? I don't know because it's outlined. Let's see if I can look at it real quick and tell you. It would be good to know, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to do a little bit of digging with that. If I can figure it out, I'll let you guys know. Of course, the other people will want to know their fonts too. Yeah, it's in outline, so I don't know. I'll see what I can find. If I can find anything, I'll let you know. Okay, you mean to find out what that logo is? Yeah, there's different software that you can say, okay, what's this logo? Yeah. If you find it out before I do, let me know. Okay, that's a good question for sure. Because you might want to use that same typeface within your label. Okay, authenticity is number 3. The only way to set your brand apart is to be different, to be authentic. So you don't really want to make it look like it blends in with everybody's. You want yours to be aligned with them, but you want it to be different enough to stand apart. Number 4, shelf impact. So showcasing power or shelf impact is the major goal of every product design. So yeah, just being a little different, shift of color, the way the package looks, there's so many different elements that goes into place with that. All right. So that's pretty much all that I have for you today. If you want to show anything, have any more questions, I'm going to kind of leave it up to you to take it from this point on. If not, we'll just wrap it up since we went, I think, 20 minutes over the last time we met. Yeah, a gradient can be used. Yep. You want to be careful with that with a logo, though. Putting gradients in a logo, just because gradients are usually like a thing that you have to be very careful with in a logo. Oh yeah, you can put it on the box, yes. Yeah, you could do all kinds of different patterns. You can even make it look like a wood box, just with like a wood image. So think about those things, like the background, you can make it look like a wood, like a piece of wood. That's why it's good to kind of take a look at other examples out there and be inspired by what you see. You can, download different textures that might look really cool in the background and just kind of dial the opacity down so that you're not using the full power of the texture. So you're just using it as an aesthetic. Okay, good. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with. Keep it simple. I think you have a lot of elements to work with, so keep it simple. Make sure you have, you're thinking about your design elements, contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity, all those things. Keep it simple, yep. Keep it simple, smarty. All right, do you want to share anything or have any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for hanging in here with me. Let me know if you guys have any other questions, problems, concerns, or even just want a second eye, I'm here. Like I said, I have three sections of this class, but I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. You guys have a wonderful day, and oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna go rest my voice and blow my nose again. All right, see you guys on the discussion boards. You guys have a wonderful weekend coming up, and I'm excited to see your rough designs here. All right, have a great day. Thank you.